Chapter 17. Gotta put on my glasses. When we got to Gloria Dump's, I told her I had 2 surprises for her and asked which one did she want first, the small one or the big one. The small one, said Gloria. I handed her the litmus lozenge and she moved it around in her hands, feeling it. Candy? She said. Yes, ma'am, I told her. It's called a litmus lozenge. Oh, goodness, yes. I remember these candies. My daddy used to eat them. She unwrapped the litmus lozenge and put it in her mouth and nodded her head. Do you like it? I asked her. She nodded her head slowly. It tastes sweet, but it also tastes like people leaving. You mean sad? I asked. Does it taste like sorrow to you? That's right, she said. It tastes sorrowful, but sweet. Now, what's surprise number 2? A book, I said. A book? Uh-huh, I said. I am going to read it out loud to you. It's called Gone with the Wind. Miss Franny says it's a great book. It's about the Civil War. Do you know all about the Civil War? I have heard it mentioned a time or 2, said Gloria, nodding her head and sucking on her litmus lozenge. It's going to take us a long time to read this book, I told her. There are 1,037 pages. That's a lot of pages in this book, huh? Woo-wee, said Gloria. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her hands on her stomach. We best get started then. And so I read the first chapter of Gone with the Wind out loud to Gloria Dump. I read it out loud and Gloria listened to it good. And when I was done, she said it was the best surprise she had ever had and she couldn't wait to hear chapter 2. That night, I gave the preacher his litmus lozenge right before he kissed me goodnight. What's this? He said. It's some candy that Miss Franny's great-grandfather invented. It's called a litmus lozenge. The preacher unwrapped it and put it in his mouth, and after a minute, he started rubbing his nose and nodding his head. Do you like it? I asked. It has a peculiar flavor. Root beer? I said. Something else. Strawberry? That too, but there's still something else. It's odd. I could see the preacher getting further and further away. He was hunching up his shoulders and lowering his chin and getting ready to pull his head inside his shell. It almost tastes a little melancholy, he said. Melancholy? What's that? Sad, said the preacher. He rubbed his nose some more. It makes me think of your mother. Winn-Dixie sniffed at the candy wrapper in the preacher's hand. It tastes sad, he said, and sighed. It must be a bad batch. No, I told him. I sat up in bed. That's the way it's supposed to taste. Litmus came back from the war, and he was sad, very sad. And what he wanted more than anything in the whole world was something sweet. So he built a candy factory and made litmus lozenges, and he put all the sad he was feeling into the candy. My goodness, said the preacher. Winn-Dixie snuffed the candy wrapper out of the preacher's hand and started chewing on it. Give me that, I said to Winn-Dixie, but he wouldn't give it up. I had to reach inside his mouth and pull it out. You can't eat candy wrappers, I told him. The preacher cleared his throat. I thought he was going to say something important, maybe tell me another thing that he remembered about my mama, but what he said was, Opal, I had a talk with Mrs. Dewberry the other day. She said that Stevie says that you called him a name. It's true, I said. I did. But he calls Gloria Dump a witch all the time. And once he even said that his mama said I shouldn't spend all my time with old ladies. That's what he said. I think you should apologize, said the preacher. Me? Alex, you're gonna go if you can't leave it, okay? Me? I said. Yes, he said. You tell Stevie you're sorry if you say anything that hurts his feelings. I'm sure he just wants to be your friend. I don't think so, I told him. I don't think he wants to be my friend. Some people have a strange way of going about making friends, he said. You apologize. Yes, sir, I said. Then I remembered Carson. Daddy, I said, do you know anything about Amanda Wilkinson? What kind of thing? Do you know something about her and somebody named Carson? Carson was her brother. Yes. He died last year. Oh no. He's gone? Yes, said the preacher. His family is still suffering a great deal. How old was he? 5, said the preacher. He was only 5 years old. Daddy, I said, how could you not tell me about something like that? Other people's tragedies should not be the subject of idle conversation. There was no reason for me to tell you. It's just that I needed to know, I said, because it helps explain Amanda. No wonder she's so pinch-faced. What's that? Said the preacher. Nothing, I said. Good night, India Opal, the preacher said. He leaned over and kissed me, and I smelled the root beer and the strawberry and the sadness all mixed together on his breath. He patted Winn-Dixie on the head and got up and turned off the light and closed the door. I didn't go to sleep right away. I lay there and thought how life was like a litmus lozenge, how the sweet and the sad were all mixed up together, and how hard it was to separate them out. It was confusing. Daddy, I shouted. After a minute, he opened the door and raised his eyebrows at me. What was that word you said? The word that meant sad. Melancholy, he said. Melancholy, I repeated. I liked the way it sounded, like there was music hidden somewhere inside it. Good night now, the preacher said. Good night, I told him back. I got up out of bed and unwrapped a litmus lozenge and sucked on it hard and thought about my mama. That was a melancholy feeling. And then I thought about Amanda and Carson, and that made me feel melancholy too. Poor Amanda, poor Carson. He was the same age as Sweetie Pie, but he wouldn't get to have his 6th birthday party. So that was a sad chapter, right? We found out why Amanda is crabby. She's sad because sometimes sad things happen, right? Right now we're not at school and that makes my heart sad. That makes me filled with sorrow, right? But guess what? I'm hopeful that we're going to get back to school and things are going to be all better, right? We're going to stay healthy. We're going to make sure we wash our hands and then we'll all be able to be together, okay? We are now on to chapter 18, okay? When I told Gloria Dump about Otis and how he plays his guitar for animals, remember? We went to the pet store and we saw him playing his guitar for animals. The animals really liked it, right? She laughed so hard she had to grab hold of her false teeth so that they wouldn't fall out of her mouth. Could you imagine seeing false teeth fall out of somebody's mouth while they're laughing? That's silly. Very silly. Woo-wee, she said when she was finally done laughing. That sure is some funny stuff. He's a lonely man, I told her. He just wants to play his music for somebody. Gloria wiped her eyes with the hem of her dress. I know it, sugar, she said, but sometimes things are sad and then they're funny. You know what else, I said, still thinking about? Well, what? I remember hearing about that. I remember hearing about Amanda, about how she lost her brother. That's why Amanda's so pinch-faced, she said. Or I said, she misses her brother. Most likely, Gloria agreed. Do you think everybody misses somebody? Mm-hmm, said Gloria. She closed her eyes. I believe sometimes that the whole world misses people. I couldn't stand to think about sad things that couldn't be helped anymore. So I said, do you want to hear some more Gone with the Wind? Yes, indeed, Gloria said. I've been looking forward to it all day. Let's see what Miss Scarlet is up to now. I opened up Gone with the Wind and started to read, but the whole time I was thinking about Otis being lonely. In the book, Scarlet was looking forward to going to a big barbecue where there was going to be music and food. And that's how I got the idea. That's what we need to do, I said. I slammed the book shut when Dixie's head shot up from underneath Gloria's chair. He looked around all nervous like. Huh, said Gloria Dump. Have a party, I told her. We need to have a party and invite Miss Franny Block and the preacher and Otis can play his guitar for everybody. Sweetie Pie can come too. She likes to listen to his music. We who? Gloria asked. We, me and you. We can make some food and have the party right here in your yard. Said Gloria Dump. We could make peanut butter sandwiches and cut them up in triangles to make them look fancy. I don't know if the whole world likes peanut butter as much as you and me and this dog, said Gloria. Okay then, I said, we could make egg salad sandwiches. Adults like those, right? No ma'am, I said. I don't have a mama around to teach me things like that, but I bet you know how to make it. I bet you could teach me, please? Maybe, said Gloria Dump. She put her hand on Winn-Dixie's head. She smiled at me. I knew she was telling me yes. Thank you, I said. I went over and hugged her. I squeezed her hard. Winn-Dixie wagged his tail and tried to get in between the two of us. He couldn't stand being left out of anything. It's going to be the best party ever, I told Gloria. You gotta make me one promise though, Gloria said. All right, I told her. You've got to invite the Dewberry Boys. Dunlap and Stevie? Ain't gonna be no party unless you invite them. I have to? Yes, said Gloria Dump. You promise me. I promise, I said. I didn't like the idea, but I promised. I started inviting people right away. I asked the preacher first. Daddy, I said. Opal, the preacher said back. Daddy, me and Winn-Dixie and Gloria Dump are having a party. Well, said the preacher, that's nice. You have a good time. Daddy, I said, I'm telling you because you're invited. Oh, said the preacher. He rubbed his nose. I see. Can you come? I asked him. He sighed. I don't see why not, he said. Miss Franny Block took the idea right away. A party, she said, and clapped her hands together. Yes, ma'am, I told her. It will be kind of like the barbecue at 12 Oaks in Gone with the Wind, only it's not going to be as many people, and we're going to serve egg salad sandwiches instead of barbecue. That sounds lovely, Miss Franny said, and then she pointed at the back of the library and whispered, maybe you should ask Amanda too. She probably won't want to come, I said. She doesn't like me very much. Ask her and see what she says, Miss Franny whispered. So I walked to the back of the library and I asked Amanda Wilkinson in my best manners voice to please come to my party. She looked around all nervous and stuff. A party? She said. Yes, I said. I sure would like it if you could come. She stared at me with her mouth open. Okay, she said after a minute. Yes, thank you. I would love to. And just like I promised Gloria, I asked the Dewberry Boys. I ain't going to no party at a witch's house, Stevie said. Dunlap knocked Stevie with his elbow. We'll come, he said. We will not, said Stevie. That witch might cook us up in her old witch's pot. I don't care if you come or not, I told them. I'm just asking because I promised I would. We'll be there, said Dunlap, and he nodded at me and smiled. Sweetie Pie was very excited when I invited her. What's the theme? She asked. Well, there isn't one, I said. You have to think of a theme, she told me. She stuck her knuckle in her mouth and then pulled it back out. It's not a party without a theme. Is this dog coming? She asked. She wrapped her arms around Winn-Dixie and squeezed him so hard that his eyes almost popped out of his head. Yes, I told her. Good, she said. You could make that the theme. It could be a dog party. I'll think about it, I told her. The last person I asked was Otis. I told him all about the party and that he was invited, and he said, no thank you. Why not? I asked. I don't like parties, said Otis. Please, I begged. It won't be a party unless you come. I'll give you a whole free week of sweeping and arranging and dusting if you come to the party. That's what I'll do. A whole week for free? Otis said, looking up at me. Yes, sir, I told him. But I don't have to talk to people, right? No, sir, I said, you don't, but bring your guitar. Maybe you could play us some music. Maybe, said Otis. He looked down at his boots again real quick, trying to hide his smile. "Thank you," I told him. "Thank you for deciding to come." Well, that was the end of that chapter.